Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where my intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models in mainstream media. So my intention is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing remarkable things in the world. And as a man who happens to be Black, I'm extremely optimistic about the future for Black men. I do not accept the negative media-generated narrative that Black men are somehow in danger. I believe the future is filled with infinite possibilities for Black men, and I'm committed to empowering them to embrace these possibilities. And I accomplish this through hosting this podcast, writing books, developing transformational education programs, hosting a television show, and being a motivational speaker and certified life coach. But I also do it by introducing them to men who are changing the narrative of making positive contributions to the world. And my guest tonight is doing just that. His name is Jeff Rivera, and let me begin by simply saying, this brother inspires me. I recently ran across his LinkedIn page. I loved what he was up to. I sent him a DM to invite him on the podcast. He graciously agreed. We set up the interview, and here we are today, meeting for the very first time. So it is my absolute joy to welcome Jeff Rivera to the show. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
How's it going? How's it going?
Oh, doing fantastic, man. Once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the podcast. So let me begin, first of all, by thanking you again for joining me. And you're definitely one of the reasons I launched this show, because I've always believed and known there are an infinite amount of Black male success stories out there. So I wanted to create a space for us to share those stories. So once again, I simply say thank you for shattering the stereotypes of what it means to be a Black man in America and giving me more reasons to be optimistic as a man who happens to be Black. So before we jump into your work, let's start off with a few icebreakers. So first of all, tell us where you're from.
Yeah, I was born of all places. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay. And then I grew up mostly in Oregon and in Nevada. Yes, we do have Black people in Oregon. It's true. That's the first thing people say, like, there's Black people in Oregon. Yeah, there is. There's a lot. And then about 17 years old, that's when we moved to Las Vegas specifically. And then from there, I stayed there until I was about 26. And then from there, I kind of bounced all over the place. I went to Orlando. I went to Boston. That's where I wrote my first novel. Then went to Miami. Then went to New York. Then went to Costa Rica. And then back here, I've been in this tri-state area for the last 5 or 6 years. And I feel the most home in this area.
There you go. Well, see, my first thought when you said Salt Lake City, Utah, I went, wait a minute, are there Black people?
Exactly. There's Black people there too. Yeah, absolutely. There's Black people everywhere.
There you go. Now, I'd like you to name a woman who's inspired you to be who you are.
Wow. I mean, that would obviously, it's my mom, definitely. I look at, people like Oprah Winfrey who inspire me. There's so many women. I mean, my first talent agent when I was about 14 years old, Kathy Wilson, She inspired me, and we're still friends to this day. So there's a lot of great women that have been, and then I've had lots of really great teachers when I look back that inspire me. My second grade teacher, my third grade teacher, all the way through the years. They were great educators that really inspired me. They were women. So yeah, it's been a great ride so far.
There you go. So name a man that you look up to and admire.
So many. Man, where do I start? It's funny because I can think about the men that I've learned a lot from to inspire me about what to do and what not to do. And even, I found that I've had mentors who didn't realize they were mentors along the way. And the thing about mentorship is that they don't always come in the shiny packages we expect. You
Yeah.
know, the lessons we learn, sometimes they're gruff. I think about another woman that inspired me was my grandmother, my Nana. She didn't always say things the nicest way, but she really taught me a lot of things. As far as a man, there's even men I haven't even met, like my own grandfather, my mom's father, who was a college professor. Even though I never met him, the stories about him inspired me about what was possible. You could be a professor, could be educated, and a Black man, and he was doing it back in the 60s and 70s. Even though my other grandfather was in the mafia, but even then, he was inspiring too in many ways because it was a different time. But I think about, obviously, there's President Barack Obama. There's gentlemen who are small business owners inspire me. My uncles definitely inspired me. They're entrepreneurs in their own right. One of them passed away, but so many great men along the way. Black men in particular inspired me, and there's white men, and my stepfather is Asian, so he inspired me in many ways as well. So yeah, lots of great people.
Nice. Now, I want you to imagine that you're going to be trapped on an island for 30 days,
Mhm.
and you can only take one book with you to read. What book would you take?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know why, but I think the first book that I think that comes to mind probably would be Conversations with God. That's a great book. I don't know why that came to me. There's so many books, a lot of business books, that come to me. As far as novels, I'm actually rereading a novel right now that I read growing up, Where the Red Fern Grows. I remember my teachers would read aloud to us, and that would stir my imagination. And my mom would read us Bible stories as a kid, and that stirred my imagination too. A lot of great stories in the Bible. So I think that some of those books, but in particular, probably Conversation with God is a good book.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I'm a huge fan of Neil Donald Walsh. And as a
Mhm.
matter of fact, I've read all of his books, but he recently put out a submission for people to contribute articles to his new book. I think it's called God Speaks or something like that. And you could submit a story. And if they like what you write, you're going to be included in his next book. Well, I submitted a story. So
Okay.
we'll,
Congratulations.
we'll see what happens. But yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Changed my whole viewpoint about spirituality.
Yeah.
Really confirmed actually what I knew in my heart God would be
Hmm.
like.
Hmm.
But it's just a really powerful book that I reread every now and then also.
Yeah, it's a great book. Great book
Yeah,
to reread, and I think it's important to have some form of spirituality, whether it be Christianity or Judaism, Christian, or Buddhism, or whatever. I think it's important to have some kind of to ground yourself that there's something bigger and greater than yourself.
absolutely.
Things in perspective,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I know the answer to this question already, but I'm going to ask
Okay.
you anyway. As a man who happens to be Black, are
Mhm.
you optimistic or pessimistic about the future in general?
Oh, optimistic. I mean, I don't even know how to be pessimistic. I mean, I've been gone through like dark times like anybody else, but my default is to be optimistic. And I'll tell you why. And I grew up in a home that was dysfunctional in many ways, loving but dysfunctional. We all know what that's like. And so I had no other choice but to be optimistic because I saw what it was like to be pessimistic. And I didn't want to be that way. So naturally my brain kicks in and I start thinking optimistic about when something, and it's not even about, having rose colored glasses. It's about just I don't know how to think only pessimistic. I just don't even understand that.
Yeah,
All the things I've been through, I don't get it.
got it. I fully understand where you're coming from. Now, I wrote a book titled The Cure for Onlyness, a
Okay.
Black man's guide to joy, passion, and purpose. And the book addresses the feeling of onlyness that we as Black men sometimes experience when we are in environments without any other people of color. And I know that you've been in that situation. And
Mhm.
I'm just curious, how do you or did you navigate through those types of situations?
Wow, that's a really good question because I grew up in a
In
in a
Salt Lake City.
well, Salt Lake City, but I really grew up in Oregon in a multicultural
Okay.
family
Okay.
from the
Got it.
beginning. And in my primary years, in about first and second grade, I had nothing but friends that were from all over the world, every country in the world. And that's why right now I live in Jersey City, okay? And I love it because it's like United Nations, so many different cultures. And that's where I grew up. So I didn't even know the first time I experienced racism, looking back, was probably when I was in about second grade. We had a neighbor who was very racist. They were racist against interracial relationships, and my parents are interracial relationship. And then the second time I remember was in third grade, and it was mostly white and Latino kids, maybe one or two black kids, and one white kid said something to the other friends like, oh, don't talk to him because he's black, and I didn't understand that. I didn't, and they didn't understand it either because they're just kids. You just your friends. You don't understand it. Um, so I do know what it's like to be the only black person or one of the only black people in an environment, especially if you're in an environment that's like a suburban environment. Um, and it's what was I think the hardest part of being black as a kid was the stereotypes of what white kids expected me to be like, because they were, this is a time when you remember that you had like you have those great shows like, Family Matters, and you had, it was just a time, I grew up in Oregon, so you had, the Trailblazers, you had, all these different great athletes, and you had, of course, Michael Jordan was a big, really big at the time, the Bulls, and so they expected certain things from me that they saw on TV, and I wasn't anything like that, and
Mm.
so that was really hard because I'm like, I was just me. And I never ever, and even to this day, I've never received um really internal racism. People, other black people say, no, you should be like this and that. It's always been from outside groups. Oh, why are you not like this? Why do you not talk like this? Why do you not do this? Why are you not the person I see on TV? I don't understand.
Mm.
Whereas I think in the entire African diaspora, that we understand there's black people of all different types, all walks of life, all different accents, all different parts of the world. And so that was really hard for me as a kid because I wasn't living up to their vision of what they thought that a black person was. And that's why today, doing what I do, one of my missions is to show the entire world that we come from all walks of life. We have all kinds of accents from all different types of the world. Some are rich, some are poor, some in the middle, some are in the north, west, south, everything in between. And there's all kinds of different types of people who are black and brown, and that's been my mission.
Nice. Now, the reason that I wrote the book, there's a guy, his name is Jewel Love, and he runs an organization called Black Executive Men. And he's a life coach, and he basically deals with the upper echelon, if you will, of Black men. Uh, these guys are, Google executives and, um, IT professionals and, make a lot of money and got all the stuff, right? And he wrote a post because he's also a therapist. And he wrote a post that said, the greatest mental health challenge facing Black men is onlyness. And when I read that, I never even heard that term before,
Hmm.
but I immediately recognized what onlyness felt like.
Hmm.
Because most of my life, I've been in that situation. The only are the first.
Hmm.
The first Black manager here, the first, so I've experienced that all my life. But then as I read his quote, I've been speaking and writing about the changing roles of manhood and masculinity for 25 years. And my primary focus have been on Black male empowerment. But as I read that, I said, there's really a cure for that. And that cure, in a nutshell, really is self awareness. Because when we as Black men do our inner work and come to a place where we know who we are, we have this inner confidence about who we are, we can navigate any situation.
Hmm.
And in doing so, we don't have to code switch and be somebody different. We can just be who we are.
Hmm.
And so I really love asking that question, and some of the responses I get from the men on the show it's interesting just to see and hear the different perspectives of, I never really thought about it, but yeah, I remember that and how challenging that was. And so I,
Hmm.
I really love putting that question out there. So thank you for your answer. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot of your success stories, your
Okay.
accomplishments, your accolades, your company, some of your projects. But for me, the true inspiration comes from the obstacles you've overcome in order to succeed. So I'm wondering if you can go back approximately 15 years or so ago when things weren't going so well for Mr. Jeff Rivera. Can
Uh-huh.
you share your story of being homeless and how difficult those times were for you?
Well, I would have to go back further than that. I think I was about 19 years old. So when I was living in my car with my mom and my brother,
Oh, wow.
and our pets. We had pet turtle, goldfish in a cup, I mean, and a cockatiel. And I'll tell you a little story about the cockatiel in a moment. But and it's so wild and dramatic, it doesn't even sound real, but this was really weird. I had this little turtle. I used to have turtles all the time, and I would put the turtle on the kind of the floor of the car. It was a two-door Buick, black Buick, and we lived in Las Vegas. It was sort of too hot at night, and I should say too hot during the day and too cold at night. And my parents were going through a really difficult time, and I made the choice to go with my mom, and that led to us being homeless eventually. Um, and that was really hard because we were parked outside of a skating rink where my brother worked. Actually, my little brother worked, and it was really hard because people would walk by and they look in the car like, are those bums? Like, what are they doing living in their car? You're a teenager, you're 19 years old, and so to hear that was very humiliating. And we would go to the grocery store. We go to the grocery store, and we would go and get the samples in the morning. If you go first thing in the morning, they have the samples out. Get the samples out. Sometimes we would go to the drive-through after hours of like Wendy's, and then ask, "Hey, do you have anything you're going to throw out?" And sometimes they would give us stuff like that. The government said we made too much money for public assistance, so no food stamps, nothing like welfare. But we are too, or I should say that we're too rich in their eyes, but too poor to eat.
Mm.
So so here we are just trying to like scrape together, and we were working during the time, and that's the misconception I think that some people have about people who are unhoused. We were working. I worked as a teenager. I was working basically. I would do convention work, and I would do different gigs and convention work. My mom was working at a movie theater. My brother was working at the skating rink. So we were working. We were just sitting there. But I understand what it's like to be in housing. You're so depressed. You just sort of immobilized. You don't even know what to do. You don't. And we were like that for a few months now. I can just imagine some people you see on the street. They've been there for years. You don't even know what to do. You know. But we would always make sure we would take care of ourselves, and we would actually wash. One time we washed our my socks in sort of this, I guess you could say like a drainage, and water from the drain. I had to wash my socks. I was wearing the same socks over and over again. I mean, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Go to the different public restaurants or whatever, go wash yourself in there. And I would go every day to the library, and the way I would escape, in a sense, I'd be writing stories. I'd write stories and I'd go to the library and read and kind of sit there, and I met some interesting people and had some great things. But all along the way, this is why I say it's important to have some kind of sense of spirituality. There were signs along the way that even though we felt like God, is there a God? Why are you letting this happen? Why are you not here for us? There was all signs, little signs along the way that somebody was watching over us. I remember right before we became homeless, we were staying in one of those weekly places, and I remember my mom saying, "Man, I really want a bird. I really would love to have a bird." So my brother and I were running to catch a bus on our way to see your mom. I told you my mom worked at the movie theater, and I brought my backpack, empty backpack. I don't know why I decided to bring an empty backpack. And I swear to God, you don't believe this. A bird, a cockatiel, fell out of the sky and just landed right in front of us.
What?
I, you know, I'm like, there was, I don't know where it came from to this day. It literally fell out, and we were like, what? So I had my empty backpack and I put it up and I put the cockatiel inside, and we weren't going on the bus. If you had a bird or whatever on the bus, I'm probably gonna throw you out, Didn't make a peep. As soon as we got to the movie theater, you heard my mom's voice and started like chirping,
Wow.
So we had like little miracles along the way, so many different little things along the way that showed us that somebody was watching over us. And it's not like it became easier after the bird situation at all. In fact, there was an officer, there was a cop a really nice cop who saw us parked out there, and it was so hot that the cockatiel was in this cage and it was panting like a dog.
Wow.
And the cop came and he saw it, and he actually volunteered to take the bird for us and watch it. We were able to give away the turtle to a home. I think probably just let the goldfish go. But yeah, I mean, it really bonded us during that time. My mother and I, in particular, I couldn't believe what was happening to us. So yeah, I have a certain sensibility when I see people who are unhoused now. A certain empathy. They're just human beings. I don't like it when people talk about them like they're not human. And that doesn't mean like I open up a wall and give my every penny to every person at all. You can't do that. But I have a different sensibility. I realize that these are human beings. Anybody could be in that situation, especially, many people are one paycheck away from that situation. It could happen anyway. You got to treat people like human beings. And what's interesting to me, Michael, is that this is an issue that could be solved in our lifetime.
Sure.
We have enough money
Absolutely.
to eradicate that,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, as someone who's been homeless, I was actually homeless for 2 years, living out of my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I have now come to not only believe, but to know that every adversity, every challenge that we face in life actually brings us a gift and a lesson if we're willing to look deeply enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, is as you look back in retrospect, do you see the gifts and the lessons of being homeless?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so many lessons I could think of, that no matter what you go through, there is another side of it. It's the other side of it. You're going to get through it, no matter how bad it is. I also learned a lesson that there's going to be little signs that you can almost miss, that you're not alone, that somebody's watching out for you. I think, and I also learned that these are human beings. We don't want to objectify them in a negative way and say that, oh, there's that dirty bum, that's that dirty. No, these are human beings. So those are a few lessons I learned from that experience. And something else is really interesting I learned, I look back, that when you let go, that's when you open up, they say let go, let God. when you let go, you open yourself up for miracles because you just get out of the way. And it's not the fact of hitting bottom why God, the universe, whatever steps in, is because when you have hit bottom, you got no other choice but to let go.
Yeah.
If you can get to that point before you even hit bottom, it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna let it go. It's gonna work out somehow. I don't need to know how. Yeah, I'm gonna move toward this, knowing somehow it's gonna work out, but just let it go, and then things move forward. And that's different than being lazy and kind of sitting on your butt. It's just like, you move forward. Hey, I don't need to know how it's going to work out, but it's going to work out. I'm letting it all go. And that's a lesson I really learned during that period.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful lesson. Now, another word for that would be to surrender.
Mhm.
And for me, as I think back in retrospect, possibly the most difficult time in my life was my divorce. Going through a divorce, extremely painful, just basically shattered my world. And at the time, obviously, I didn't have the insights to understand the gift in it, but I have come to know that my divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, without my divorce, number one, I would have still been trapped in a loveless marriage. I would have still been working for a corporate job that I was really trapped in and didn't feel like I could really express myself and do what I knew I was capable of doing. I would have never become a writer or a speaker or a podcast host. So I know with absolute certainty that there are gifts in adversities and challenges. As a matter of fact, I wrote an entire book about it called Adversity is Your Greatest Ally. And when we learn, as you mentioned, when we learn to surrender, which to me means letting go of the way I think my life should be and being open to seeing how my life could be, that's when things change.
Mhm.
And so I had to be willing to surrender, to let go. And at the time of my divorce, I was actually an atheist. I didn't believe in God. So I could not have related to this conversation per se, but I have come to know that this divine intelligence that created this amazing universe that we live in, it built a perfect system. And we have to figure out how we fit into that system. And when we do, miracles happen all the time.
That's
But
true.
it really is a matter of surrendering to relinquish control in some way that we have control over everything.
Mhm.
But when we do that, we do gain control in a different way because now we're connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Mhm.
And it is in that connection that we will be guided to next steps to get back on our feet if we fall, but to recognize that I believe, again, this is Michael Taylor's belief, that we all have a divine purpose. And when we figure out what that purpose is, we get in what I call the universal flow, where magic just happens. That's the only way to explain it. Magic just happens. For example, I never dreamed of being a writer. Had absolutely no experience of writing. I didn't start writing till I was in my 30s. And I wrote my first book called Brothers Are You Listening? A Success Guide for the 90s. And the intention was to share with Black men my journey of overcoming my divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, depression, homelessness. And so it was my attempt to give back. But I now realize that it was divine intelligence that was saying, look, you went through all this stuff for a reason. Because I need you to now take the lessons you've learned and share it with others. And in doing so, I'm fulfilling my divine purpose. And nothing compares to knowing that I'm doing my divine purpose for me. It just works.
Mhm. That's so
So,
true.
so let's switch gears just a little bit. And we're going to talk about some of your successes, which there's a gazillion of them. So I won't have time to go through all of them, but there's some that I really want to highlight. And first of all, I want to congratulate you for the 3 Telly Awards you recently won. So for those of us who have no idea what the heck a Telly Award is, first of all, tell us what they are and tell us what you won them for.
Sure, absolutely. So a Telly Award is one of a prestigious award is given to people who are in television. whether it be like a commercial that they shot or show. So some shows that have won in the past are the Ted Lasso show, Game of Thrones. Those are some Telly Award winners in the past, and we won our Telly Awards, or 3 Telly Awards, for the American Reality Television Awards, which I co-executive produced. It was starring Vivica A. Fox. It had appearances by Simon Cowell, Reba McEntire, Courtney Cox, so many amazing people that appeared on the award show. And yeah, co-executive producer stepped in where I needed to be stepped in, and you know, did the best I could to make sure this show, you know, went off without a hitch. And fortunately, I was blown away that we won. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. It's actually my first major television award, and we're looking forward to some others coming up. But yeah, it's a great honor.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Because I was flipping through your LinkedIn page and I go, hey, this brother won 3 Telly Awards. What the heck is a Telly Award?
Yeah, it's a great thing.
Now, with that being said, I want to play a video clip real quick of one of your projects, and then we're going to talk about it.
Sure.
Let me load this up.
Ooh, the Pop Lock Kids. You ready? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, and here's my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out. Mind your own business, don't spill no tea. If it ain't positive, then don't tell me. Build our sisters up and our brothers too. Treat one another like you want them to do. I'm a very special part, this is true. Here's an example of what I can do. I can change my handle and my spout. Tip me over and pour me out. Mind your own business, don't spill no tea. If it ain't positive, then don't tell me. Build our sisters up and our brothers too. Treat one another like you want them to do. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, and here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Tip me over and pour me out. Mind your own business, don't spill no tea. If it ain't positive, then don't tell me. Build our sisters up and our brothers too. Treat one another like you want them to do. Mind your own business, don't spill no tea. If it ain't positive, then don't tell me. Build our sisters up and our brothers too. Treat one another like you want them to do. Remember, subscribe, like, and share.
Man, I love that. I just absolutely love that video.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Now, so that's your Pop Lock Kids. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, the Pop Lock Kids is a music-driven preschool show that features 4 kids of color dancing and singing about ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, nursery rhymes. And it's really about representation, because we didn't see really a lot of kids that look like us growing up. So I wanted to share something for my nieces and nephews. I've got 14, almost 15 of them, that, you know, I really wanted them to see kids that look like them. And there's so many great kids out there still to this day that don't see kids like them represented in animation in particular. And so we're in a great point in history where the average person has access to software and so many great things that you can put your own projects out there. And fortunately, I am a beneficiary of that time period to be able to come up with an idea, to collaborate with other creators and put it out there. So
Now I'm curious though. So is that part of your Collective Five Entertainment company? Is that something separate?
that's completely separate, something that I created by myself. It's actually inspired. Originally, it was called Nana Pop Lock and the Pop Lock Kids, and it was loosely based on my grandmother and us kids. And I decided, okay, there's actually 6 of them, but I decided let's start with 4. You know, start with the 4 kids.
Now, is that something that you do animation, or you have a team that does the animation? Do you do that yourself, or is that?
Yeah, I do the animation myself. I was fortunate enough to be able to work with a great character designer, a great character modeler, a great character rigger. Those are the steps that you take in order to get it ready. And then because of the resources I have, I'm able to actually animate it myself using software. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have fun. I write the songs myself and perform it myself, and it's really a lot of fun. It's a great creative outlet.
Yeah, so I also saw one with the 4 girls.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was pretty tight too. That's pretty tight.
yeah.
You got the moves going with it. I mean, I was like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I guess what we would say, he's got some flavor in it. You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
really, really, really nice. Now, so with that being said, though, tell us about Collective Five Entertainment. What's that?
Yeah, so Collective Five Entertainment is a talent management and a production company. And we're actually a collective of individual companies that come together to be able to represent talent of color and also to produce projects. So we each have different talents and different verticals. 3 out of the 4 partners mostly come from the book publishing world. One is actually a book publisher, one's a former book publisher, and one's a book publicist. And then I really focus on film, television, audio. That's where my company really focuses on. And so to date, we have 22 TV development deals, which is really exciting. Scripted, unscripted television, kids content, science shows, reality TV. Like I mentioned, sometimes I'll sort of join another project. For example, in the case of the American Reality Television Awards, I was able to join that project and kind of put my stank on it in a sense. But so yeah, it's a great company. In fact, we just had a meeting right before this podcast, and we're talking to a client and about a show that we're going to be producing, an unscripted show. We're really excited. It's a great show that is going to showcase another side of Black America we don't often see. So excited about that. And we get along. I'm the only guy that's mostly women, and it's really great. We come from all over the country. There's some from the South, some from the North, different places. We all have different accents. We all have different types of Black people. So it's really kind of cool to work together and for this common cause.
Okay, so again, you are a man of many hats. So as a huge fan of Ebony Magazine, obviously Ebony Magazine, historically has been that place for us to go and see us in positive lights in a lot of cases. So you were the former SVP of entertainment. So I'm curious, what was that entailed, and how did you get involved with that? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was the senior VP of entertainment for Ebony Magazine Publishing. So there's Ebony Media, and Ebony has different verticals. Ebony Magazine Publishing was the book publishing end of it. So this included also a podcast as well. And so I was brought on by one of the partners at Collective Five, actually. She really needed some support on what she was doing. And I was very fortunate to be able to offer that opportunity and be able to pull together some really exciting things. And then ultimately found that, my best use of time was really to continue on the path as a creator and to continue independently. And it was an honor really to be part of the Ebony family. That's something that they can't take away from me. That title, earned every letter of the SVP. It's not easy to do, but something that I really enjoy doing. And yeah, it's a great thing. I think it's just the beginning. I think that a lot of great things are coming for me in the future. I'm really excited about just taking a step back and just creating, being the creator, creating, different projects, whether it be for kids stuff or for grown-ups or scripted, unscripted. I'm really excited about being able to jump in there and just make it happen.
Yeah. Now let's back up just a little bit. I didn't read about or even look into your educational background. Did you go to school for this? How did you learn all this stuff?
Yeah, I'm a self-taught guy, it's funny because I was just editing for a client of mine a sizzle trailer, and I didn't know how to do that like a year ago. I went up on YouTube tutorial, got the software, just Adobe Premiere Pro, which a lot of shows use, and it's affordable, so people can afford it. And anything I don't know how to do, I can't figure out on my own, I look it up on YouTube. Okay, and there's some great tools now that make it possible to be able to create TV shows that look just as good as anything else out there on television. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of the democratization of creativity for everybody. There's no excuse now. A lot of times I find that people will say, "Oh, I just need the money. I need the money, and then I can do this," and they use that as a crutch, their obstacle really. And nowadays, it's not about the money. Even if you have no money, you can go to the library. You know what I used to do when I couldn't even afford a computer when I was writing screenplays as a teenager? We had just moved to Nevada from Oregon, couldn't afford a computer. So I went to the middle school, which was about a block away, and I talked to the principal, who's another Black man. And I said, "Hey, I'm writing screenplays." I think I was 17. And, I'm not quite a middle schooler, but I was being homeschooled at that time. Could I use a computer? He said, "Yeah." So he let me use a computer in the office. Every day I would come with there, I'd type my screenplay. I couldn't afford it. So I didn't have any money, but I just was provided these different tools along the way. So my encouragement for anybody who really wants to do something, especially creative nowadays, most of the tools are available in some way or another for free. But even if they're not, you can join Facebook groups, you can go to the local library. Once you just get started with what you have, take a good look at what you have and just get rolling on it using the tools you have. And then it's amazing. Then the universe opens up. People start seeing what you're doing. Oh, cool. I got this one thing. I can add this to your pot, your stew, It's like that stone soup story,
Sure.
And so I was just putting a little the carrots, and then put the celery, and then put the onions. Before long, you have this gigantic, delicious stew. Just start with what you have. If all you have is a piece of paper, if you don't even have a piece of paper, you have scratch paper, the back of a newspaper, and you need to start writing it, or you have an iPhone, start shooting something. Just use what you have. Don't stop and say, "Okay, when I get this, then I'll get started." No, get started now.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah. And again, that's my friends gave me a nickname, and they call me Michael Happy Ass Taylor. And I love that because it really shares who I am, because I've always been this optimistic, outgoing, positive guy. And trust me, I had possibly the worst childhood you could imagine. But my gift was the ability to see the good in all situations. Okay. And I have lots of reasons for optimism, but primarily what really excites me as a man who happens to be Black are two simple words: technology and information. We now have access to technology information to do anything we set our minds to. Like yourself, I'm self-educated. Matter of fact, I only have an 11th grade education, but I've written 12 books. I've done TV. I'm doing a TV show. So there's no limit to what we can accomplish, especially as Black men. And so for me, I believe the greatest challenge we have is to change our mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
to think positively, to see the possibilities that are there. And one way we do that is by engaging in conversations like this. Because when I see a Jeff Rivera and the things that he's accomplished, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm inspired, dude. I'm following this dude, and that's want to follow his footsteps so I can do what I know I can do. But he gives me something to believe in so that I can do what I'm capable of doing. Now, I love something that Tyler Perry said not too long ago. He said, stop fighting for room at the table. Build your own table.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is one of the most powerful statements from a Black person that I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I wrote my first book, I sent my manuscript to 60 different publishers. Got rejected by 59 of them. Okay. Number 60. And this again gets into that woo-woo universe stuff, right? Number 60 sends me a response letter. Now, this was back before the internet was really a thing. So you sent your manuscript in, or you send a query letter first to see if they were interested, and then they'd send you a letter. If they were interested, then you send your manuscript. Well, anyway, I sent the manuscript to this one person who was slightly interested. She calls me about a week or so later. She says, Michael, I loved your book. She said, I really loved your book. And she says, please don't take this the wrong way, but my research shows that Black men don't buy books. Okay, so the book was Brothers, Are You Listening? A Success Guide for the 90s, targeted to Black men. So she says this: if you would be willing to change the title and some of the content, I'd love to publish your book. Now, at the time, I could have used that little $2,000 advance big time because I was so broke I couldn't even pay attention. But there was a part of me that knew that I would have been out of integrity with myself to take that deal. I said, ma'am, that's kind of like asking a parent to change his child's name. I can't do that. She says, I fully understand. But she says, I think it's a great book. So anyway, I simply decided that I was going to figure out how to self-publish. I got a part-time job at a bookstore to learn how the publishing industry worked. I learned how to self-publish. And so therefore, I launched my own publishing company because I love books. I absolutely love books. So that whole idea of stop fighting for room at the table, I built my own table. And that's what you've done. That's exactly what you've done. So for all you brothers out there who may be struggling with living your dream, then you're going, oh, this is too hard, or they won't let me. Stop it.
Yeah, I agree 100% because and now more than I have 22 TV development deals, but now more than ever with the system broke, opportunities exist. I always think about, like, why are people standing in line for bottled water where they can just turn on the faucet? You don't need to go ask like a panhandler for permission to succeed anymore, no matter what industry you are, especially in entertainment. If you want an audience, it's social media. If you want to make your own film, use your iPhone, use your Android. If you want to edit, that software is available even for free. Just Google it. If you want to be do your own music, that's available for free too. You can do your own podcast, you can do all this stuff. And like you talked about when Tyler Perry talked about building your own table, I agree that more now more than ever, now's the time. Jump in there, take the tools you have available and just do it, and then they will come to you. So this, I'll tell you a quick story. When I wrote my first novel called Forever My Lady, I self-published it, and I don't think I could. When I first started, I couldn't even afford the print on demand, but I started to make it what we would call now an ebook, available on, and I started to promote it on message boards, and then Warner Books came to me. The opportunity came. I've seen it happen recently with myself. Opportunities because of starting it, just getting started. I've seen it happen with clients who just build their own whatever using Fiverr.com for animation, whatever, and having major music labels and major companies come to them. So I would just encourage anyone watching or listening to this that if you have a dream, especially in regards to entertainment, books, TV shows, music, any games, whatever, just start. Do with what you have. You don't have any money. You don't even need money nowadays. And sometimes you have to separate your passion from your means of making a living to start. You gotta detach that, so you don't add that desperation to your passion project.
Yeah.
You gotta, maybe you have to work at McDonald's or sweeping floors, whatever, to make a living, or all of that, all above. And then at night, when you barely have any energy left, you do the passion project to start, and then eventually you'll be able to do both. But I always say, just get started.
Yeah. And I can't remember who said this, but it's again one of those powerful things that I think you got to embed this in your brain. There is no such thing as lack of resources. There's only a lack of resourcefulness. Think about that for a minute. Yeah. There's no such thing as the resources are there, even if you completely broke. That's just a lack of resources, because there's ways to figure out. I mean, forget, when I published my first book, I was so broke I couldn't pay attention, but I figured out a way. I was resourceful. And resourcefulness is a superpower. And one way to be resourceful is learning to network. Surrounding yourself with people that can become the resource that you may need. So that's really, really important. Now, as we wind down, real quickly, I want you to talk about, you started this 1-hour mentorship program. And you've connected some really amazing people that do this with a 1-hour mentorship. Tell us a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah, right in the middle of the pandemic, right after the George Floyd incident, people were in Hollywood stuck at home. They wanted to do something to help the Black community. And there were a lot of Black folk who were stuck at home too. And I just thought to myself, like what can I do to help encourage our community and connect these folks in a way that would really propel our community forward? So I started to think, like, what tools do I have available? Okay, well, we have this thing called Zoom, because it wasn't really a thing before the pandemic, not really. So I had Zoom, and I thought, well, what if I connect these high profile people to a community of creatives, which I'd met on Facebook, and just allow them in a Q&A fashion to connect and ask those questions that they've always wanted to ask, but couldn't just Google. And so I started to reach out to different people, directors, producers, actors, studio executives, and ask them if they'd like to spend an hour talking to these people, because I started to think, what are going to be the obstacles? I don't have the time. I don't have this, all these excuses, right? So I started to say, okay, let me just remove those obstacles one at a time, so they have no other reason than to say yes, unless they just don't want to. So that's what's great about getting those initial rejection letters, because you get to see, like, okay, here's why they're rejecting it. Okay, let me just remove that obstacle, that obstacle, that obstacle, that obstacle. It becomes a gift, like you talked about, a gift and adversity. So I reached out to people like Steven Soderbergh, who directed, the film Traffic and many others, and he was actually our first really big name that we were able to get, and then was followed up by people like Michael Douglas, Lee Daniels,
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, Annette Bening, Julianne Moore, studio executives at Disney, Nickelodeon, Netflix, all these, Lionsgate, all these different people. And David E. Kelly created so many amazing shows like Picket Fences and Ally McBeal, and big Big Little Lies and whatnot. So I was able to get some amazing people to speak to this group of creatives for an hour and answer those questions. And so it was and completely volunteer. They're gracious enough to do it. And I was able to learn quite a bit myself and put those people together. And we have expanded the program to a showrunner program. So the showrunners, for those who don't know, are basically the people who run the show. They create the show. They are sort of the quarterback of a football team of people put it together and sort of guide the show. And so we're able to put together an expansion of the 1 hour mentorship and do that. So yeah, it's a great thing. We've been working on zero budget, you know. But, you know, I don't worry about that. You know, you don't worry about those obstacles. You're like, okay, what do I have available? Let me use what I have and just make it happen. And so that's what I did.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about what's next. What's up for Jeff? What's coming up?
What is next? So I have been focusing on continuing with the Pop Lock Kids, which has been great. I have what I like to call my opus. I have this African Game of Thrones type of fantasy series I've been developing for quite some time. So I've been really working on that lately. And in developing a number of TV shows. So we're waiting for these to be green lighted. In the meantime, working independently on my own stuff. And I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the present too.
There you go. So if people want to learn more about you and your work, what's the best place to send them?
Maybe jeffrivera.com.
Okay.
You can probably find me on LinkedIn as well. Kind of follow up what I'm doing there.
Okay, so I'm going to be putting a link underneath this video. What link would you like? What website would you like me to put? Jeff Rivera or?
Yeah, jeffrivera.com. It's just JEFF Rivera, river with an A.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll put that link on the bottom. Last thing, close out with your final thoughts. Just share whatever is on your heart to share.
Yeah, I would say I want to encourage everybody, you know, who's got a dream, especially in the creative, just go for it. There's no reason why you can't succeed. Now more than ever is really important to just get out of your own way. You have a dream, use the tools you have and just do it. No more excuses. Just do it.
Excuses. Yeah, and again, thank you, Jeff, for what you're doing, blazing all these new trails. And I know, again, the optimist in me, when I see stories like yours, because I know most of my life as a man who happens to be Black, I've received a lot of pushback for my optimism because it's like I'm denying all the stuff that's happening. I'm not in denial. I know that stuff is real, but I choose to focus my attention on what's right. And so as you're watching this show, that's why it's Shatter the Stereotypes. Don't buy into mainstream media. As Black men, we have the capacity to be, to do, to have anything we set our minds to. Jeff is living proof of it. I'm living proof of it. Don't believe the hype. Black men are thriving. We are freaking thriving in all segments of society today. So it's up to you to choose. That's the key. You get to choose. If you've ever seen the movie The Matrix with the red pill, blue pill thing, that's all about choice. We have the choice to choose the red pill or the blue pill. Most people are going to choose the blue pill. Don't choose the blue pill. Choose the red pill, because that's going to take you down the rabbit hole. And the rabbit hole is where the truth resides. So go for the red pill, man. Well, Jeff, again, I want to say thank you, bro, for being on the show. Again, I appreciate you taking out an hour out of your time. And I'm inspired by the work that you're doing. And if there's anything I can never do to support you and your work, man, don't hesitate. Reach me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email, say, hey, Mike, I got this thing going on. You want to be a part? Whatever. If I can support you in any way, man, reach out, okay?
Absolutely. Loved it. Thanks a lot.
Right, we appreciate you. So this has been another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes. And that sums it up, baby. Shatter the Stereotypes. Go out there and make your dreams happen. We'll see you next episode.